Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a showdown here between the Abbasid, who shall be led by Doubt, facing off against the Viper, who's going to be leading the forces of the French. So on the western side of the map, it is going to be the French and Viper, and on the east side, it is going to be the Abbasid and Doubt. So, as far as the Abbasid against the French goes, the Abbasid do have some pretty good spears, of course, with the phalanx, and can really get a lot of those lower tier troops to fend off the early aggression using the fresh food stuff. So quite eager to see, but again, the meta for Abbasid right now really is typically 2 TC, just fast expand, and that really does kind of maximize the efficiency of your best tier 2 upgrade, which is indeed the fresh foodstuffs. And for the French, most French games I've seen on the higher level of play, and of course this is kind of the pinnacle of play here, has been essentially French knights backed up by archers. You open up with knights, you harass, you follow up with archers, and you just keep pressing until either you finish your opponent or you put them in a bad enough situation that you can just kind of tech behind that and have an advantage from there. So quite curious to see what builds are going to be kind of using here, but this is going to be on Arabia, a very aggressive map, certainly very tough to defend against good cavalry pressure. It's not like Hill and Dale or any of these other maps that really, Mountain Pass, for example, that have these huge choke points. It is a pretty serious open field map, and I think civs like the Mongols, like the Rus, English, French, I think those are really the civs that you typically see on this map simply because of how good they are in open field and those skirmishing environments where they don't need to be teching too hard. I would say China might be a bit of an exception. They do have that very good early defensive landmark in the Barbecue of the Sun, which can give them some spatial control. And China, I think, has a deceivingly good early feudal military, using these supervisors who either supervise archery ranges or stables, or going for Song Dynasty on 1 TC and following that up with Jugnu. That can be incredibly strong in my opinion. So anyways, rant is over. Looks like the House of Wisdom is going to be coming down, being placed in the back side of the base, or the east side, I should say, but it is the back of the base, essentially, as it pertains to his orientation to his opponent here. So this is going to be nice. And of course, as you know, the Abbasid, it's not as much of an issue in 1v1, but in team games. I'm quite curious how that big 3v3 tournament went, actually, where essentially, if there's an Abbasid player, they're very vulnerable. If you're in the late game and somebody creeps up on your base with like 4 bombard cannons, you can straight up just die if your army's out of position, whereas other civs will have 4 or 5 4 landmarks, or if you're China, they're going to be having even more, actually, which makes them very tough to snipe. I think that's why I would say China is probably one of the best team game civs. They're just really, really tough to finish off. Mongols as well, because they can pack up their landmarks and run away, which is very, very good. So as far as the Viper goes here, just going to be going with 9 villagers on food. It looks like 4 on gold, and not mining any lumber here early, which is fairly normal for the French. French aggression is usually contingent on gold and food, and you want to have a surplus of both because that's the French knights. They cost quite a bit of each. And for the Abbasid, oftentimes you'll see them start heading to the second age, usually with the economic wing, which is going to be the case here. And then they'll pull workers off food and maybe switch them on over to stone. But I think against aggression, many Abbasid players are starting to kind of tech against it and essentially go on 1 TC. They're not expanding anymore against good aggression, especially against French, who are really, really a very headstrong civ there. They're going to be coming for blood, and basically they'll go for a fast castle age and try and take advantage of the siege engineering. But here it looks like it is going to be expansion from Doubt, so he is going to be coming in here with the stone outcropping in the mining camp, and you can see villagers I think are being pulled off food, or he's got 6 on food right now. And yeah, I think it's going to be aggression coming in from Viper. And he is switching to a little bit of lumber, which is obviously normal. You need to build houses. And on top of that, it does allow you to sort of switch over to archers, because the intuitive answer against the cavalry is spears. Archers counter spears, rock, paper, scissors. They can get their own archers to counter that. But typically, I think that the advantage goes to the cavalry and archer player versus the archer and spear player. Like, if we're talking like the pinnacle of micro. Now, if you're talking like potato micro or somewhere more around my level there, it's going to be a little bit of a different story. But I do think that in the hands of really high level players, the cavalry can take advantage of the mobility and really win a lot of those engagements. So ample scouting from both players. If we're taking a look at the vision here of the Viper, you can see he can see most of the map, and I would imagine Doubt is in a similar boat. My apologies if I'm mangling his name there. I'll do my best to kind of correct that. But the second TC, looking at the current resources, is still a ways off. We got 120 stone and 100 wood or so. There are times where you can get it like a more or less in tandem with your second age, but typically it does take a little bit longer. And is he banking the gold for the fresh foodstuffs? He is. So he is sitting on 142. Fresh foodstuffs going to be starting instantly. Very, very good play right there. Going to be getting that juicy tech, which does reduce the cost of villagers by 50%, which might not seem like a lot, right? It's like 50 to 25, but when you're building like 100 villagers over the course of a game, because right now, let's look at the ecos. Yeah, so right now Viper's at 20 villagers, and Doubt's probably at like 18 or 19. Yeah, 20 as well. You're going to be saving a ton of food, which really you can use for spears and archers and early military Or of course, just you can even sell it at a market. I've seen Abbasid players do that to fast tech, use the fresh foodstuffs to surplus the extra food, and then essentially use that extra food to sell at the market for gold or whatever you need to advance to the next age, which is pretty cool. There's all sorts of neat stuff. Now, the first of the French Knights has come out here from the Dread Viper. It is going to be moving across the map and getting ready to hit the Abbasid. Now, in terms of vulnerabilities, they pulled into their base relatively tight. I think everything they're mining is within the purview of the TC, although we're not seeing any military infrastructure whatsoever. So we're not seeing like spearmen or anything like that maybe looking to fight back against this. So scouts are coming in. The scout battle is here, the Duel of Fates, and the first of the scouts has arrived at the mining camp and probably could get the mining camp kill. But we are going to be getting the second TC, which is being built a little bit in the range of that knight, who's going to be couching that lance and coming in, trying to get the charge. But the TC garrison, very good response here from Doubt. He is able to pop those guys in and force the knight back. So no good early picks here for the Viper. Not able to get any freebies. He could have dove and maybe gotten like one villagers, but his knight would have been taking some pretty critical damage. And is he producing more? No, he's not actually. And this is something I've been seeing a bit as well. So basically you go one knight just to like force a little bit of panic from your opponent. You know, you force the barracks here, you're forcing wood expenditure. And then after that, essentially what you do is you just go for professional scouts. So now you can see scouts are being pumped out. And do we have a mill? And do we have pro scouts? We do. So it is going to be a pro scout build here from Viper as he pulls the scouts back to the base. I would say French, Rus, Chinese are probably some of the best pro scouts civs in general, just because of the efficiency with which they can do it, right? The French can get these scouts from the School of Cavalry. The Rus can get it from hunting cabins. They can also research the tech itself from the hunting cabin. And China can supervise to get them. So they can supervise the tech and get it super quick. I think those are the civs that you pretty much always see it. Now, as far as civs that you don't see it with is really Abbasid. Delhi sometimes does it, but it's a little bit haggard. England typically won't do it. And yeah, HRE does do it, but they're not like super great at it. They just do it out of necessity because it's so efficient with the prelates buffing up the deer collection. So the first spearman is out, able to push back that brave royal knight, although the knight might be able to win that. I don't think it'd be a worthy trade though. More spearmen are coming out because they're still Dark Age spearmen. They're still in the potato age. And we do have the double TC. So the Abbasid here do have the House of Wisdom, the Golden Age in effect almost. They need 2 more buildings, which, you know, oftentimes I see newer players kind of try and rush to the Golden Age by forcing buildings, but he's doing a pretty natural progression to it. And here he's going to be getting the house as well as a mill here. The Abbasid do have better berry bushes, much like the Delhi Sultanate. They can get the berry bushes up to 500 food a pop. Not up to, but it just is 500 food. Viper looks like he's staying on one base. Now he's back to producing knights. So he does have the efficient, you know, pro scouts going. He's got a nice group of scouts. I think it's like 4 or 5 or 6 in total, grabbing all the deer on the map. And the scouts and, the archers and knights are going to be amassing outside the Abbasid base. And, you know, this is like somebody with as good a micro as a Viper. It's really, really tough to stop. And I think this is like the most efficient way to play French, hands down. Just exactly what you're seeing here is just going pro scouts into knights and archers. And it's one of the strongest tier 2s in the game, I think. I mean, I think England can do pretty well with their longbows and spears fighting back with that. England also has a nice perk with the hardened spearmen right away. But the villagers are being taken out. Only 1 villager going. Wow, no villagers lost there. That's pretty nice. And it looks like one of the Royal Knights is going to be going down. So that's an incredibly cost-efficient trade here for Doubt, as he is able to get the French Knight and does not lose any of those villagers. A couple of them hanging on just barely. He might have lost 1, actually. It's hard to tell. We could spin around and check, but I don't think he did. Now, looking at the eco count, we do have 34 here for the Abbasid, and for the French, it is going to be 33. Now, French can keep up with the double TC for a short period of time simply because they do have the faster villager production. 10% in the Dark Ages, 15% in Feudal, and then 20 and 25% in the Imperial. So it's really nice. It's like a mini Song Dynasty thing. French Knights gathering in the flanks, more and more archers coming around. I think the aggression is pretty much going to be nonstop. We do have an outpost here to defend the villagers at this deer camp. I like this position. It's kind of cool. If the French do come in with their, you know, scouts and try and grab these deer, they're going to have to get through the Abbasid villagers who can get in the outpost, and there's also spears and archers nearby. So I think that's pretty cool. And this base, this whole like northern side of the base is pretty well defended by the TCs. But now this is where it's going to get a little scary. The outpost is garrison. French Knights are diving, and the outpost needs to be targeting the archers before they start picking up the spearmen. So yeah, it's just going to be the methodical constriction of the Viper as he does go after here the hardened spearmen. But Dowd is doing an excellent job holding this back. Really, I don't think he's lost much of anything. The French have certainly taken more casualties. As far as the score goes, though, Viper is a little bit ahead. I think that's just because of his military score. The French Knights are very heavy on the military score, and the Abbasid really have a pretty small military, just making archers and spears nonstop. Blacksmith coming up as well, probably just to get the ranged armor defense too against the archers would probably be okay for the spearmen. I mean, it can't make a difference. The archers do, of course, do 10 damage against spears, and reducing that to 9 can't make a difference. So spears are coming out, archers as well, outposts kind of sitting. Is anybody banking towards the Castle Age? Dowd is doing quite nice here. He does have 788 gold, whereas Viper is really investing all of his gold in this feudal pressure. More and more knights coming out. He does have chivalry research, so the Bretonnian knights here are going to be healing with the magical juice of France, perhaps some French wine, quite glorious, I've heard. And are able to take out the doggo and are going to be looping around the back of the base, looking for vulnerabilities, and certainly a lot more vulnerable back here, right? We have a nice kind of concave of space in which they can move, whereas in the front of the base, not quite as juicy. There's that outpost, there's a bunch of spears kind of chilling, and has he been lulled into a false sense of confidence? It looks like there has been kind of a stop production here, but I think Castle Age is certainly in the vision here. But here comes the cavalry charge. A couple of the villagers might be going down here, which is going to be helping the French mitigate that second TC. Spears are in position, and a second barracks is coming up. And look at this, we do have the Grand Theft coming in, so one of the scouts does get picked there. Very, very good control there by the Abbasid, able to pick off that scout that did dive in, and now it is going to be Castle Age coming in. So we are going to be seeing the military wing, no, culture wing, and I do agree. I think Culture Wing is the way to go. Essentially, Culture Wing gives you access to the second best tech here, or one of the best ones. It's Preservation of Knowledge, which reduces the cost of tech by 30%. So you got to be careful, though. There are archers out here who can pick off a couple of these spears. One of the spears does go down. Where are the archers? It looks like they were up north. I think there was a loose archer here by the Viper doing a little bit of harass while he dives in with his other archers and actually picks off more and more stuff. So very well played here, man. Just nice poke. A couple of villagers going down, but I think the best recipe is just to be cautious and conservative until you get Castle Age. When you get Castle Age, this whole rush can be pretty much thwarted by crossbows and field engineering and things like that. So there's going to be an outpost coming up. This fight's going to be a little bit dicey, though. I don't know if the Abbasid can win it. And honestly, I think they're going to be paying the troll toll a little bit here. Many of the spears are going down. The cavalry's being microed pretty efficiently. And yeah, this is looking kind of scary. Though the Abbasid archers need to be focusing down the enemy archers here. Outpost going up, going to be garrisoned. And this should push back the attack, but not without taking some casualties. Now, in terms of eco, we have 43 villagers for the Abbasid and 44 for the French. So despite being on 2 TC, the French, of course, are pretty much equal in villagers. But on the other hand, the Abbasid have been kind of banking a little bit more towards Castle Age, and they do hold that pretty well. Look at that. All the archers go down. The cavalry are going to be forced to regenerate. And is the Viper anywhere close to getting Castle Age? He is. Yeah, he's not that far behind, really, considering he's been on 1 TC. He does have a massive food advantage, too, with all these deer carcasses. And what is he going to be collecting here? It looks like it's going to be food for now. So we'll see if he switches that to something else here in a hot minute. Now, the cavalry circling about, once again, looking for opportunities, just constant poke, constant stroke, looking for them openings. Preservation of Knowledge will probably be the first tech. And look at that, man. He actually got to the Castle Age with all that pressure ahead of his opponent, which is very, very impressive. So more French cavalry riding across the map. Nice encirclement coming in from the Viper here. And we got spears heading to the east, maybe to poke some of these archers. And yeah, they might be able to get them. It's only a couple, but nonetheless, the knights could come in here and maybe hammer these guys if they are not braced and prepared. So the Castle Age is here for the Abbasid. They do have the 2 TC. And the Golden Age is in effect. Yes, they do have the first Golden Age. A couple knights coming in, but spears are well in position. Though he is forcing them back, which is kind of hurting the income a little bit. Let's look at the income per minute for both of these players. So Viper is currently massively ahead on food, but in terms of wood, the Abbasid are up a little bit, and gold is favoring the Viper as well. So Viper is doing quite well. Nice harass on both sides. But the Abbasid do have the double TC advantage. So that could, if the game does go super long, carry the victory for the Abbasid. I'm curious if we're going to be seeing any field engineering. Are we going to be seeing mangoes? Could be a little bit risky against the diving French knights. But again, mangoes and spears is pretty good. Because the mangoes can target down any of the archers. And if the knights dive in to try and get on them, the spears can handle it. It's pretty good composition against French. But it looks like we are going to be seeing a men combo. So yes, it is going to be the man-at-arms. And he does indeed have 1 ranged armor upgrade from his blacksmith that he did get based on the archer pressure. So the Viper, pretty good positioning. This is something that I need to learn to do a lot better. Basically, he's positioning his scouts like around his opponent's base and just patrolling back and forth to see if his opponent is going to be pushing out and trying to secure any forward objectives, essentially. Whether that be sacred sites or relics or any of that sort of good stuff. Now, villager production 52 for the French. For the Abbasid, it's at 55. So despite losing some villagers, they still are ahead of the French a little bit on eco, but that could be changed here. A little bit of damage. The Abbasid moving in with spears, as well as men-at-arms. And the French knights fighting in a bit of a precarious situation here. One of them might go down, but it looks like he is going to get away, despite the TC kind of blasting away. In the back of the base, we do have French knights diving in. Very, very good multitasking here, as the knights are able to get into the lumber line here, and now they're pushing onto the TC. Granted, there's not really any kills for them there, but yeah, still causing a lot of disruption, and the very immobile army here of the Abbasid is kind of struggling to keep up with the French harass on both sides. So more and more French knights, as well as archers, going to be moving in. A couple of the spearmen getting poked down. Once again, they get blasted. But yeah, very, very tense pressure, and this is very tough, especially against such a high-level player like the Viper. Granted, both of these guys are extremely high-level players and legends, of course, of the Age of Empires community, so very cool to see them going fisticuffs here in this old battle. Now back in the French base, what are they banking? It looks like they are indeed banking gold, which I think is smart. Spears are chasing down the knights on the periphery, so good split here by Dowd. Essentially, he knows he doesn't need to be kind of marching his whole army back and forth, so he sends a small portion of his forces to go deal with that harass. I feel like the French knights are going to be able to outtrade the men-at-arms pretty heavily. Like, I feel like the army comp here, you can see beautiful micro here. Basically, he's picking off the spears and archers, and without the spearmen, the men-at-arms are going to get absolutely flattened by these guys. And now here comes the big charge, and yeah, they get hammered in the back. Just brutal, brutal control here. And you can see that's really making a big difference as it pertains to military supply. So the military supply for the Abbasid is only 19. I would imagine the French are closer to 30 or 40. Yeah, it's 36 right now. And they're just massacring the Abbasid infantry corps here. Just brutal stuff. The men-at-arms really, really not paying for themselves. I think we need to see like a mangonel or something that can put some pressure on this force, because he's kind of playing into their game right now. Having to push forward and fight them is very, very tough. And over here on the flank, though, a little bit of a win for the Abbasid. It looks like the spears were able to catch those French knights here, although you can see he's waiting with these knights. Probably to go charge over here and disrupt their lumber a little bit, although no, those knights did get away. He didn't actually get the kill on them, so. Oh, look at that little supply block going down. Apparently, I'm not the only one who gets supply blocked. But yes, in terms of economy here for Dowd, 61-23. Looking at the Viper, he's currently sitting at 60-40. So their eco is relatively similar, but the military trades have been massively favoring the French here. And it looks like we have our first camel archer, which I do like. The 20% damage mitigation on the knights is quite substantial. Up here, there was a scout of the Viper lurking nearby, maybe looking to kind of expose these villagers here, but I think the spears should be able to kind of deal with that. We have not seen a mangonel yet, and back in the Viper's base, are we seeing a second TC? Any crazy eco in that regard? No, it mainly looks like it's just going to be kind of pouring on more of the same, and he is going to be getting his own mango. Although it looks like he just canceled the mango and switched to a springald. I think he actually saw, yeah, so looking at the Viper's vision, yeah, okay, so he canceled the mango as soon as he saw the enemy mangonel being built. He just started instantly building a springald. Very, very good awareness right there, and he is able to plan ahead a little bit. But this camel archer is just having a good time poking the scout here. The scout's getting a little bit too serious about his job. Up in the north, the French looking to press in. There's going to need to be some really good mangonel positioning. Otherwise, this whole position is going to be compromised. A couple spears chasing away. Villagers do get to the TC. Not too much damage taken, but the French archers, as well as the veteran Royal Knights, able to push them back. Certainly quite good. And where are the springald? I would imagine relics are being taken across the map. So this monk here going to be going for the sacred or for the relic? No, it looks like he's going for the sacred site first, or going to be grabbing the relic and then the sacred site, just to kind of multitask a little bit. And it looks like the Abbasid are looking for some war up here. So they're trying to force a fight and pigeonhole those archers up in the corner, which I think is potentially a good play. Here comes the first shot, and the tracking homing missiles do have a partial hit right there. Good micro, of course. I think there's a couple of crossbowmen, so the French unique arbalists are kind of mixed into the bunch here, and they're going to be turning about and shooting at the men-at-arms. But here comes a big fight. The French knights with a huge charge, hammering into the men-at-arms. Brutal damage, and honestly, they might be able to just bully this army down, but I guess they don't want to be taking a mango shot, which certainly makes sense. So just kiting and fighting. You know, it's not like the mango's pushing him into his base, right? So he's going to be able to pull back, and oh god, that's so brutal. And now the mangonel might get taken out. No, he doesn't want to commit for it, which makes sense. Mangonel is going to be pulled back here, and all during this, eco damage going down to the base. So just like two French knights being like just sat in the bushes here are now going to be moving in. It looks like they killed like 10 villagers, because this was a very high micro fight up here, right? There was a lot going on, so that is going to be very cost effective. And a low attempt going down in the middle there, almost getting that one Abbasid men-at-arm, so he is going to be kind of forced back. Now, let's look at the eco after that little harass there. I would hesitate to call it a harass. It was actually pretty brutal. A couple of the French knights will pay with their lives, but I think it was certainly worth it. Viper at 68 military, or eco supply, and 60 here for the Abbasid. So despite the 2 TC, the harass has been good enough to really kind of put that down. And this could be big trouble. I think it takes 3 springalds, if I'm not mistaken, to one-shot one of the mangonels. But again, 2 should be able to do the trick. The camel is here providing the horse unease. We're not seeing any walls or anything crazy like that. And the gold expansion has been found. And the French knights do have 6 ranged armor. The arrow tower itself, I think, only does like 5 or 6. It barely does any damage. So the French knights can just tank that all day. So we got some reserve forces coming in, a couple spears up in the north. We have a little bit of a skirmish. A couple of the men-at-arms being taken out by the massive amount of arbalists and knights. And once again, they're going to be shutting down the lumber. And the lumber production a little bit scary here, but it looks like the Abbasid are going to just be pushing out. I think they've had enough of these snakes on their plane, and they're going to be moving across the map to just try and, you know, get some control, put the Viper on the back foot, and keep him away from his base with offense, basically, right? The offense being the defense here in this situation. And will he be able to take the sacred site? Looks like he's going in for it, man. If he could actually pick off this mango, oh no, not like this. Oh god, big mango shot, huge burst damage, and immediately the forces do spread out. And it looks like the mangonel is going to be going down. So in the end, it's a pretty good little trade. You get the mangonel, you get a couple archers, you do head off the Viper's forces. That was a nice engagement. So this is going to be big, but look at this. We do indeed have the Springalds up in the north, and they are popping those mangonels in the face. And suddenly this relatively lower quality Abbasid army is probably going to get hammered down by those knights as well as the arbalists. And also the French do have the supply lines advantage. The fight is much closer to their base, so they're going to be getting reinforcements. And that is a brutal massacre as the French knights just showing how much more powerful they are than these men-at-arms. I mean, probably almost double, not double the HP, but quite a bit more. A better DPS, very, very resilient with high armor values, and the French crossbows really just nailing into these men-at-arms. Overall, this is just nasty, nasty damage. And, you know, a pretty good late-game rally there. I mean, all the French knights did go down. The Abbasid do, of course, like I said, have the double TC, so it's always a pretty good comeback mechanic. But during all this, he's been losing villagers. I mean, the Viper, like, he's just, like, you think it's just, like, an all-in fight with this entire army, but then suddenly there's, like, 2 knights here, there's 4 knights down here, just hitting into these economic deposits here and just doing so much damage. And those micro trades are really, really what's winning him this game here. And obviously, he's in a pretty commanding position as it pertains to the score. 46 to 3,000. Obviously, the French and the Abbasid do have accurate metrics as it pertains to looking at their score, unlike the Mongols. So this is a really, really dominant game here for the Viper. He does have mid control. He's probably going to be able to grab relics pretty freely. Looking at his church, where is it? Does he have any relics in it right now? He does have 2 relics right now, so it's only going to get worse. So back in the base here, men-at-arms and spears are going to be the army composition. The Abbasid trying to set up a little bit of farming infrastructure. I feel like they're going to need some walls or something. Yeah, something to just try and keep those knights from just running all over their base. Like every time he leaves, he's just getting hammered by these French knights. But the French army is relatively beat up as well. The mangonels were able to get a little bit of splash damage in before they were taken out by the Springalds. But the thing is, once somebody gets a Springald advantage like this, it's very tough to get back into the artillery game, right? Because as you trickle out your artillery, they're going to be able to kind of pick it off in these battles over the course of the game. However, the Abbasid can instant power build artillery, so if they do bank enough resources, they could do that. Now, looking at the banked resources and income per minute, Viper up massively, 1,200, 1,800 to 500, 700, and 500. And current resources, Doubt is having to spend everything he has. Viper has a massive surplus of food, but he's spending a lot of gold because he's making artillery. He's also, of course, making the knights, which are very gold intensive. And once again, look at this. This is really, really, man, I got to take some notes here. He's always just got knights cackling in the back. And even if he doesn't take the fights, he just runs away and then has those knights in your supply line. They're so tanky and so resilient against the natural base defenses. Like regular horsemen can be taken out, but yeah, once again, another villager going to be falling. He did leave some reserves back there, so he is able to kind of poke those guys. But overall, this pressure is just so good. Now down to the south side, more and more knights kind of creeping in, making sure that the Abbasid are not mining from this big old stone outcropping or the gold vein. I wonder if there's going to be a keep, if that was the plan. Knights in the backfield getting on the villagers here. So the villagers are paying the troll tolls as spearmen try and move across. Crossbows as well. But dude, he's just like laser focused on those villagers. And I would imagine he's going to be moving in from the other side as well. Yeah, just kind of creeping. And this is like a huge exposed position. Looking at the villager count right now, we do have 55 there. And for the Abbasid, we do have 83 for the French. So big difference now, big difference. And this is with the French being on 1 TC. I believe they're on 1 TC most of this game. Guildhall still banking, but he has been collecting gold from it. So he's not saving super late. Farms being set up on the north side of the map. And the French knights are chased into the corner. It looks like Imperial Age is available for the Viper. He's at 2,600 and 3,000. So he just, man, that's so good. He collected from the Guildhall to get that Imperial Age. He just waited till he had enough and boom, suddenly like he's Imperial Age, just like that. Whereas like he had like 200 gold before that. So French harassing down here. Going to be taking a little bit of a beating from the Abbasid army, but it's all a trap, all a distraction. As from the north, the French are going to be harassing the north side of the base. A couple of farms potentially in their scope. Villagers sitting idle here, going to be moving back after being harassed by the French. And here in the center, we're going to be getting the College of Artillery as a proxy. So that is going to give them the Royal Artillery. So the Revolquin, Cannon, Culverin, obviously it's going to be cannons. I mean, you could see a Culverin. Culverin wouldn't be terrible, of course, for, you know, sniping out the enemy artillery, but considering he already has like 3 or 4 Springalds, I don't really think that's super necessary. So French knights cackling up on the north side of the map. The Abbasid here sitting there with the outpost trying to get Springald emplacements. Always a little bit of a desperate thing when you see the Springald emplacements coming in, but you got to do what you got to do. Those knights are very tough to kill for basic arrow towers. And this brave men-at-arms taking all those mangonel shots right in the face, going to be charging in. Probably also going to eat some crossbows. We will see. And the Springalds ain't what they used to be, but he does end up falling here as the Abbasid going to be building some springs. And I think we're going to have one more battle. Maybe the Abbasid will choose to just kind of take some attrition in their base and maybe try like some sort of a backdoor. Looks like they're moving across, but I mean, the French army could probably honestly just send their cavalry. I feel like those 11 knights could probably put a huge hammering on this force, maybe even defeat it, although there are 9 spearmen, so it's a little bit hard to say. So sieging the Abbasid base, Viper at 89 villagers, and Doubt here sitting at 63. So certainly a massive advantage for the French. Military supply for the Abbasid is currently 50, and for Viper it is 79. So not point of no return, but certainly a massive advantage. And I mean, I think the game state is kind of the point of no return, but overall I'm saying like the army sizes are, you know, a good defense like in the base could potentially do something here. So I do like the outpost being upgraded with stone. That's going to make it much tougher to actually push in there. And here on the flank, we do have a nice little pressure piece. So some of the Abbasid military able to find some of these farms down here. So quite nice. Maybe going to be able to get the farms. Will they push into the base? They do, I think, only take out one villager in the end, so I don't think it's going to be like devastating harass. But behind this, it looks like the Abbasid is going to be moving in. Nice snipe there, able to get that mangonel down. Probably should just pull back at this point, honestly. Although it looks like they're going to be moving in, maybe considering it's mostly an archer army. And the Abbasid actually getting a pretty cost-effective trade as they move into the enemy base here and are able to disrupt the farm economy pretty damn efficiently. So very, very nice there. But I just think it's a numbers game at this point. Like, despite the decent engagement there, there's just too many French. There's too many Arbalists here, too many archers, and they just are not going to be able to kind of produce the numbers they need to really win that fight. And from there, that pretty much is going to be GG. As the Viper comes in and constricts his opponent, that is going to be it for the Abbasid and out. So GG, well played. Really, really fun match. Classic showcase of French pressure, right? The 1 TC French really does, you know, support in conjunction with the not free villagers, but the faster build rate. You can do very, very nice. So let's go ahead and go to that game right there. I believe it was, no, these are my games right now. So I just finished mine. So he's somewhere on the friends list, but let's see if we can find that. And here we are looking at the stats of the game here. So let's take a look at the overall score. So yeah, the Abbasid had a couple moments of glory when they were able to get the second TC up in the beginning, but the constant engagements in poke was very, very aggressive and really did a ton of damage. Look at the villager count in the end. I'm quite curious to see what they actually had in that regard. So the villager count, yeah, man. The Abbasid had a couple moments, but that harass was just so damn effective. And I would imagine the French were pretty much dominant in most of the primary resources. So GG, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Certainly quite a bit of fun to see these. Oh, it looks like they're in a clan. So quite a powerful clan. Man, if they had a big clan war, I'm sure they would be quite ferocious. But yeah, certainly fun. And really shows you the efficiency of that kind of split pushing, having French knights in proxy positions to kind of dive in during your main fighting, and that awareness and pressure that he was able to apply to the Abbasid double TC. That's going to be it. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time with more replays, and that is it for now.